A, B, C. A always be B, C closing. Always be closing.
All right, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Scared Money Don't Make Money. We have an awesome guest here today. We are also his first podcast that he's ever been on. So thank you for that, sir. I will let John talk a little bit about himself, and then we'll go from there.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Cameron. Excited to be here. So, quick background on me: I'm a recruiter from San Francisco and recruited at different agencies for 3 or 4 years, and then I started my own recruiting business. I brought in a partner. I ran that for 5 years,
Yeah.
and after I sold it to him, recently started coaching other friends who were recruiters I worked with into how to also start their recruiting business. And I kind of really fell in love with coaching, enjoyed it, and now I have a full-time business called Learn to Recruit, where it's a program that helps people who are just like me, agency recruiters, start their business usually on the side while they keep their day job. And once they make a couple placements, and they're able to spin it up to the full-time job and just have more time, freedom, money, all that good stuff.
Okay, so I'm from California as well. I know we've talked
Yeah.
about that. I'm in SAC. You're in San Francisco.
Yeah, although I went to Davis, so I spent a lot of time in your area. Yeah.
See, I didn't dive into Davis until after I was in the military because I came back and I was stationed over in Fairfield at Travis, and my
Mhm.
mom and my dad live in Davis, and so that's when I dove into that whole scene. Was my 18, 19-year-old age.
Yeah, no, it was fun at the time. It was far enough for me to get away from my family in San Francisco, where they couldn't come and just because I have those what they call them, helicopter
So
parents,
the
right?
helicopter, yeah.
Yeah, the Asian
What'd you eat
Asian
for
tiger
lunch
mom
today,
too.
John?
Yeah, and so if I got an offer to go to UC Berkeley if I transferred there from City College, but I was like, oh no way, they'll just show up
Yeah,
unannounced.
yeah, yeah.
And they'll bring me food, but they'll chill. But Davis is far enough where I'm like, okay, I'm a couple hours away. They can't bother me.
So you went to UC Davis.
Yeah, I went to UC Davis.
What'd you major in?
Oh man, I changed my major 3 times. I was a bio major to start.
Okay.
At the time, and I'm dating myself, but X Files was really popular, so I wanted to become that was like the CSI for people's generation now. Yeah, right. I wanted to get to forensics, and then I realized I have being in the chem lab is so boring, so I scratched that, and I got into business, and then ended up with business and communications, which is
Okay.
what I'm using that with recruiting, right? So it ended up working out. Yeah.
Okay. No, yeah, my Adrian, my wife, is a microbiologist,
Hmm.
and so I get it. I can't she talks about those things, and I'm just my eyes I
Yeah,
try
yeah,
not to
yeah.
glaze over. I'm I'll send her a meme that 90% of the world laughs at, and she doesn't get it, but she'll say,
Yeah. Oh, but now she'll school you about the coronavirus, and she knows
"Yeah,
everything about it,
you
right?
don't know the amoebas and how they just multiply." I can't see amoebas, so it is what it is, bro.
It's not real. I don't see it.
It's not real. It's not a real
Yeah.
thing. Is it a book?
Yeah.
Uh,
Oh, it's
so
hilarious.
how so what happened when you got out of with your degree, what was the transition?
Yeah. Well, after I graduated, I kind of fell into sales because I always like people and I
Yeah.
like selling things. And I worked at Enterprise Rent a Car, right?
Oh,
And
there you go.
that was one of my first jobs. I sold the rental car insurance.
Oh, there,
Um, yeah, even though I didn't make commission on it, I just enjoyed it, and I knew that a lot of people hired out of enterprise, and they really keep a close track of your sales metrics for the damage waiver, right? Basically, the car rental insurance,
gotcha.
and because I knew they tracked that because they didn't, they make a good margin on that. So
Oh yeah.
I was hustling. I would not let people into a car unless they bought
Yeah.
that. I remember one
Are you
time.
sure, man?
I remember that one time I was in the parking lot. It was sprinkling, and the guy's like, "Well, now I already have insurance, my own insurance." I'm like, "Wait, what's your deductible?" He's like, $1,000. I'm like, "Sir, you're on vacation with your
Yeah.
family. What if you get a dent, a scratch, or ding on your car? Would you want to spend hours here filling out the insurance paperwork, or for $9.99 you can run this car to a wall, come back and drop off the keys? It's a damage
For
waiver. It's not,
$10, man.
yeah,
That's
for
a
$10, man."
Starbucks coffee. You can
And so
rent
finally,
this
he's like,
car.
"Look, man, I'll buy whatever you just let me get into the car." And then my manager will yell at me. She's like, "God, John, we have a lobby full of people. Why are you
I have time for this.
slinging this insurance so much?" But sure enough, right? My first job after that was doing inside sales for a a tech company, and I printed out all my reporting. I was number one in the region for
Yeah.
damage waiver because no one else really cared much
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
But
Like, oh, you don't want it,
so
whatever.
I was able to say, well, I don't know much about tech, but I do know about sales, and I have the evidence, right? So I
Yeah.
showed them my little booklet I printed out, right?
Yeah. Your little I
Yeah.
Love Me book.
Yeah, it was a little book that was like John's number one, number one.
Yeah.
It printed out like all 50, regions, and that was
Yeah.
like number one. But I just knew that they documented that, and so that was how I first learned sales. But unfortunately, I think I learned it from a sales book called "Can I Have 5 Minutes of Your Time" by a Xerox guy. It was
Okay.
all traditional hard sales, right?
Oh, okay.
How to handle objections and
Yeah.
all this stuff. So it was effective, but I
Mhm.
learned that when you try to build long-term relationships, that
It's
doesn't
not
work. That's good for like selling gym memberships, or
correct.
which I also did too, right?
Which, by the way, you used it for that too.
Yeah, I do that too. Yeah, same thing. All right. Do you want the one club or the all
Yeah.
club membership? Which one do you want?
You want
Right?
access to the sauna? It's really good for your pores.
Yeah, exactly. I'll introduce them. You'll meet friends here. You'll meet girlfriends here. It's awesome.
I think that's one of the things I have pushed since I became a recruiter. And when I was first recruiting, I don't want to say people laughed at me because nobody laughed at me because my numbers were great, but everyone thought it was odd the way that I recruited because it was very much like kind of like you said, we get a lot of training the same way. Is it's very like, hey, like, do you like baseball? And then it's like, is it okay if we transitioned into talking about this? And then
Yeah.
it's like objection, like you said, and then answer, objection, answer, and so forth.
You know
And
what? Yeah, it's like most of my sales training I got was through a program called Sandler Sales, and they have this thing called a buyer seller dance, where that's
yeah,
why yeah,
I like that.
people yeah, it's still a dance because people who buy, they know they know not to trust salespeople,
Correct.
right? And so then they're really like keeping their cards close to the vest. They can lie. Like I
Yeah.
think there's this rule that you can lie to salespeople and still go to heaven. It's okay, right? You can hang up on the telemarketer. It's all good.
And no one
Uh,
bats an eye.
yeah, and the salespeople know that buyers do this, so they try to break rapport, or
Yeah.
build rapport and all this stuff. And so this is a little dance going on. That's why when you go to like a TV store, you know exactly what you want to buy, and someone comes
Yep.
over, is like, "Hi, can I help you?" You're like,
Right.
"Nah,
Nah,
I'm just looking," because you're afraid to get like upsold or something, right? Or yeah,
no, no, that's what I mean. It's like the whole like the rapport step. I used to like just kind of skip that. Like people
yeah,
come in, like I remember my boss, he was a newer manager, and he sat down, and I was like, um, kid sat down, and said, "Hey man, how's your day going?" He's like, "Good." I was like, "Cool. So like, what can I do for you?" And and went through the whole sale. Kid joined whatever, and he left, and my boss was like, "You didn't even like talk about anything." And I was like, "You know why? Because he's glad he got out of here in 45 minutes rather than an hour and a half, because we're not buddies, man." Like,
yeah, yeah,
people respect that when you don't try and, shadow the situation, like be honest. Like I've told people before, I'm like, "I don't care if you join." And they're like, "What?" They're like,
yeah,
"Well, but you're supposed to care." I'm like, "Oh, don't get me wrong. I think you should, just because I think everyone should." I'm like, but you're not changing this organization by yourself. So no offense, you're somewhat irrelevant right now. And
yeah, yeah.
they're like, but I want to be relevant.
Yeah,
And then,
well, that's funny because then that's like flipping the script, right? You're having them qualify.
correct.
All right. But yeah, that's why, like, going back to the whole building rapport thing, I hate when people do like weather talk. Like, how's the weather over there? Here's the weather over here. It's like no one cares about that. Or, I even got to the point where I stopped asking people like, "How are you?" Even though it's like a formality,
Yeah,
because then it's always the same answer. Fine. How are you?
I'm
Fine.
good.
I'm
Yeah,
like, there's just 10 words we could have just skipped, right? It's
yeah,
more like now I just say things like, "Hi, did I catch you at a okay time to talk?" Or
yeah,
and then at least that's respectful, right?
correct.
And it still serves the purpose of being a pleasantry without throwing in like random.
No,
How's
for
your day
sure.
been so far? Right?
Yeah. There's a book that I was reading. It's called Influence.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
read it? Have you heard of
yeah.
it?
It's Caldini, right? Robert Caldini.
I think so. Yeah.
It's something like
It's.
that, right?
I'm
Yeah,
not gonna lie. I didn't pay attention to the author's name. It was recommended. It was recommended to me. I found it.
yeah,
I listened. I listened. I read it. I listened to it,
yeah,
and that was one of the things that he brought up. Is he's like, they did this statistical analysis of like salespeople who started with, "Oh, how are you today?" And then people who didn't, and the people who didn't actually ended up being more successful because they're just, like you said, they just kind of got into it.
Yeah, and one of the main because I started getting big into like personality profiles. Like, have you heard of a thing
Ah,
called a DISC profile?
yes,
DISC. Yeah, it's a big one. It's kind of, and they use it to evaluate like salespeople, and it's a sales training tool. But the main gist is that there's like four main personality types, like the
yeah,
straight shooter, the warm and fuzzies, the
yep,
super analytical data
yep,
type of person, or the super laid back type.
yeah,
And then if you sell the way that you are, you'll have less success like 25% of the time,
yeah,
right? So if you're super like get to the point
yep,
and you meet another person that's like a type A person, then you guys will be like great. But then but they'll turn off someone that wants to talk about like their
correct,
weekend, right?
correct,
But if you're that person that's like warm and fuzzy and likes to ask about someone's weekend, you'll kind of annoy
yep,
the straight shooter type. So then I've learned how to kind of
chameleon.
shift a bit.
Yeah, be a
Yeah, be a
chameleon.
little bit chameleon or like mirroring, right? And like, okay,
Yes,
I shouldn't sell the way I want to be sold, which is the old way people talked about, right? Like
yeah,
sell the way you want to be sold, treat people the way you want to be treated.
yeah,
But it's like more like, hey, sell to people how they want to be sold,
hmm,
right? Which is like, or basically how to communicate with people the
yeah,
way they want to communicate. So yeah, so that's kind of a bit of thing over the last few years I've had to modify, and I've built it to the program as
yeah.
well of like, hey, don't just be you, be whoever you need to be to communicate best with that person, right?
Correct. No, I agree. I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
tell people that all the time. I think I was sitting having lunch with some of the recruiters throughout our state, and they were like, how old are you?" And, because like I have like kind of a baby face. I got the gray hair though. I know how to talk. I would say more educated, but I also know how to talk to people who are like 18 and 19.
Yeah.
And so as I'm talking, as I'm
Very
talking,
confusing, right?
exactly. No, that's what she said. She's like,
Yeah.
you look like like 30, whatever, whatever. She's like, but you slide in and out of talking like you're 30, but then also like you're 21. And I was like,
Yeah.
that's the point. I do like meant like subconsciously I do that on purpose because I know whoever's in a conversation, I'm going to at least relate to one of you as I talk. And
Yeah,
it'll
and
grab
people
your
pick up on that so much. People pick up on all the just below the radar. It's like the subliminal things,
yeah.
your intonation, like everything, and you can mirror people's yeah how they talk, right? I mean, when I used to be a bartender, I would talk to bouncers.
Where have you not worked, John?
Yeah, exactly. I've had a lot of odd jobs, right? Yeah, it's I always talk to them differently than people that right. A VP of finance that I'm talking to as a potential client, but
Exactly.
and then there's a range in between. But yeah, but that's something that you kind of have to learn through experience, but also
Yeah,
like having the right mentors. Some people
definitely.
who are more social, probably like you and I, or we're like we pick it up because we kind of
Yeah,
that's like social intelligence.
yeah.
That you get just from like well I got just from not going to class and just messing around and going to a lot of
Yeah.
parties and that's why like people say like salespeople like if a salesperson someone's applying for a sales job and they have like a 4.0 GPA, the interviewer is like no, like why are we like you spend too much time in the library, man. Like
Yeah.
we want to hire like the 3.1 GPA or the
Yeah. The
2.7.
dude who
Yeah,
balances it all. Like
yeah,
he's
because
not a
that
perfect
person, yeah,
student, but he's an okay student. But
yeah,
oh
like
yeah, I'll
that person
party
was
all
like,
day.
yeah, at frat parties, like
Yeah.
socializing and
Yeah.
developing their social IQ, and
Yeah.
then that translates to sales, right?
That is that is the first time like someone I've ever heard that, and that makes 100% sense.
Right? Imagine if you're like interviewing someone for a sales role, like, so what's your GPA? Like 4.1, like get the fuck out of here.
You're done. You're
go
done. You're
go
done here,
yeah,
Ryan.
you're done here, man. Go program something, yeah. Go do some accounting, go add some numbers, man. But yeah.
But I mean, that's how I was though. I mean, I barely graduated high school. I mean,
Mhm.
but and my wife always laughs at me because we talk about attendance, and I was like, I actually had really good attendance. She's like, but you didn't like do all your work. I'm like, because I wasn't there for the work. I was there for the socializing.
Yeah, my friends were
I was
back
there
there.
for my friends. Like and granted, obviously back then people were like, what are you doing? But now it has made me a great recruiter because
Mhm.
because I can interact with people and stuff like that. And so no, that totally makes sense. So
Yeah,
so
man.
so enterprise, and then where'd you go? So then you said you
And then at Enterprise, after that, I essentially I've met a friend who said, "Hey, I worked at a staffing agency." I'm like, "What? Tell me how recruiting works." And as
Yeah.
and just like most people, I fell into it because I tried selling like gym memberships, rental car stuff. I got offered to become a used rental car salesman, which was to them a big promotion, right? I'm like, and I was this close to taking it because they were like whining and dining me. And back then, what that meant was they took me to like Chili's,
Yeah.
yeah, like order whatever you
Let's
want,
sit
right?
down place. Hey, you want the ribs?
Yeah,
Get the ribs.
exactly, right. And I think the guy that worked there, the manager, he was a former military recruiter too. So he was like, "Why, if we were to offer you this position, why?" I'm like, "What, man? Like, you're buying me chilies, man. You definitely are going to offer me this job, right?
You want me,
You
man.
want me, man? You let me order appetizers too. It's just, yeah, I know what's going on, but." Uh, and so I turned it down to get into more of inside sales, right? So after that, I fell into recruiting because I realized I didn't really like anything enough to sell it forever. Some people can sell like software
Correct.
forever, and
Correct.
like God bless them, but I just never liked anything that much to sell it forever. But I like people, right? Like I
Correct.
enjoy talking to people, so I'm like, oh, I'll just sell people skills, right? Um, and so then I interviewed at Apple One, which is my first
Mhm.
recruiting job. And yeah, they hired me. I mean, I think at that point they'll hire anybody because the turnover was so high because it
Yeah.
was a grind, right? You're working long
Yep.
hours for very little money, uh, and placing like minimum wage jobs, right? So it was
Yeah.
like a temp agency. So that
Oh,
was my first job that I
oh,
got into in San Francisco.
temp work, man.
Yeah.
I heard that's a beast.
Well, it's a thing where like the people I talk to, they would say like just horrific like horror stories like, hey, like John, if you like I need help getting a job. If you can't find me a job by next week, I'm gonna lose my apartment, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm like, holy crap, okay, let me and I would just like I would stay late to
Yeah.
try to pull strings and get them a job and but when they did get them, it was really rewarding because they'd say like,
Yeah.
oh man, thanks so much. Like you got me out of my crappy job or you got me a job. I'm able to pay my bills now.
Yeah. And
So
you're
it's
like,
really
man,
rewarding.
it's nice that you can pay your bills because I
Yeah,
can't.
I can. Yeah, well, that's the thing because Apple One's like their motto is that the candidate is the center of the
Yeah.
universe. So they're like, look, focus on the candidate, help them out. You serve the candidate. So that was
Yeah.
my that's what I learned for the first year or so, and then it wasn't until I moved on to other like
Mm.
boutique recruiting firms that they're like, well, no, the client is the center of our universe because they're the ones that pay our fees,
Correct.
right? So I had to make a shift from candidate to client,
Yeah.
which wasn't. And so when you serve the client, the good thing is you made more money because they're the ones that paid good fees. But then
Yeah.
the candidates that I was placing weren't like the people that needed a job. There are people that did not need a job.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, they just wanted maybe a better job.
They
They're like,
wanted
I'm
a
already
better
making
job.
six figures, but I
Exactly.
could always make more. So
Yeah.
like what you got for me? I'm like, wait a second, you should be more grateful to talk to me. But
Yeah. Hold on. Hold on.
yeah, exactly. I realized that like, when I was doing tech recruiting, yeah, like these software engineers will be treated like rock stars. They're like,
Yeah.
yeah, like what you got for me. And I quickly learned that they got hit up like by dozens of recruiters every week.
Yeah.
Right. If you're like a rock star programmer, you can walk
Exactly.
into any like tech company and just get a job like that, right?
Yeah.
So then
You're like,
they had that
what do I
ego
have
too.
for you? You're like, I will beat the.
You know how you're probably little, dude.
How much you weigh? A buck 20?
All right. Well, and the crazy thing is these programmers, the techies, they're making like high six figures like right out of college. My
Oh
first
yeah.
job out of college, I was like barely above
Yeah,
minimum
yeah,
wage,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
their first job probably in their whole lives were like six figures.
Yep.
So
God.
it's right weird.
It's like a love hate thing. You're like, I love the apps you program. I hate it.
I'm like,
Hate how
wait, so
much you get paid.
you've never had to punch a time card your whole life? You never had
Right?
to.
No, that's right. Though. Like that is a that is a hard shift to make. I'd say luckily when I became a recruiter, I I was already very somewhat cognizant of that, so
Yeah,
which allowed me to, like to be a little bit more blunt with the people. Like, I don't work for you. Like, I work for the Air Force. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
either do what we want you to do, or we just don't hire you. And they're like,
yeah,
well, what do you mean? I'm like, dude, you don't got nothing to offer. Like, we have everything to offer you. All you can give us is an able body. Like, let's be honest about the situation. Like, but that's okay. That's how life works. It's okay to understand that it's a give take. And I felt like a parent half the time because I'm educating these 18 to 24-year-olds. Like, that's not how life works, bro. Like, you don't walk, and so,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
that has allowed me to kind of have like, it's hard because sometimes you can't help people, or like you said, sometimes you help the people who don't necessarily need the help, but they qualify and they're wanted. So
Mhm.
we hired them. Like,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it all kind of plays even with like entrepreneurship because the people that do the best, I found like as self starters, are ones that had to go through challenges or
yeah,
hardships, and they're used to having to grind.
for sure.
And so, if you've had it kind of quote unquote too easy and you're a little bit soft,
Yeah.
then yeah, the first time you get when life gets hard, right, is when you crumble. And so yeah, a lot of like the people, my clients I work with now, like with the coaching program, the ones that do well are the ones that just are like sorry, I said puppy that are
No,
the ones that have had to like basically work for themselves or make
yeah,
things work, right, didn't have like people to rely on too much,
for
right.
sure. We call that soft money.
Easy money.
That's what my buddy my buddy calls them. He calls them people who are soft. Calls them soft money.
That's funny. Yeah.
Okay, so you're at this temp staffing agency. Did
Mhm.
you then move on to? You said you moved on to more the words boutique.
Yeah, more boutique. Yeah. So I wanted to get to tech recruiting because when I realized that wait, it's the if I could place people that make more than minimum wage, I'll get a bigger commission from
Yeah,
that, right? And then
simple
right,
economics.
yeah, I was like, I realized that after a year or so, I'm like, wait a second. And yes, I went to work for this boutique tech recruiting firm in San Mateo,
Okay,
right? Yeah, so I went there, and then we mostly did like programmers, developers, and I really kind of cut my teeth there with learning all the because I didn't have a technical background, so I had to learn all the jargon and
exactly.
front end, back end developers, what all that meant, right?
Yeah.
But then what the cool thing is, I realized that it's all kind of the same. Where once you can just plug and play, like or swap out different requirements and
Hmm.
recruit the same people,
Yeah.
right? So and so I did that for about a year, and that was fun because I learned how to like manage accounts, right? I did a little
Okay.
more full desk work
Yeah.
because when I started, as most people do, they are like they get good at sourcing, get good at
Yeah.
recruiting, but then they don't ever have a chance to deal with the client side, right?
Right.
And at that time, I didn't. They gave me some accounts, so like
Hmm.
they're handed to me, which is nice. But I was able to manage the client relationship,
Yeah.
and so I learned how to do a bit of like both sides of the desk, right?
Good. No. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah. Well, yeah, and I'd imagine that, like they tell us all the time, is train the people to replace you.
yeah, yeah.
So then I'm sure that helped you because then you were able to leave.
Yep, exactly. I think, well, yeah, because then once you learn both sides, well, that's the thing. Once you learn both sides of the business, like you learn how to like deal with clients, you learn how to do the candidate side, put it together. You're like, wait,
You're like,
I could.
this isn't.
That's when yeah, I could do this on my own, right? Like that's when the idea started noodling in the back of my head. And a coworker of mine, Mike, who later became my business partner, we would joke around, be like, man, one of these days we should do our own thing.
Yeah.
And then and after that, I got recruited to come to from San Mateo back to San Francisco to be a first hire for a tech division that Premier Staffing was building up.
Okay.
Right, so they're a big recruiting firm in San Francisco. They have offices now, kind of
Yeah.
in different locations, but they wanted to kind of pilot and test out like a tech recruiting division, and
Okay.
so they recruited me to be their first hire, and I helped build up that team.
Yeah.
And it was with them that's where I actually did a lot of sales and like got the clients,
Okay.
and then and then it was kind of through that, yeah, I got the experience and learned basically how to do it all.
Yeah.
Then at that point, that's when I got really confident. I'm like, well, you know what? If I had to do this myself, like I think I could do
Yeah.
it, right?
You're like, I
But
literally just learned everything from
yeah,
here.
I just learned everything. But then, but the fear was there because they had this nice fancy office and
Yeah.
they had a team. So then I thought, okay, in order to have a business, you need to have a fancy like downtown office, a lobby.
Yeah.
Well, now you don't, right? Everyone's remote, right?
Yeah.
So like that's completely gone.
Oh yeah.
But like you need to have a good brand, and why should someone work with you if you don't have a good brand behind you or established corporation you're working for?
Hmm.
Then no way would why would any company hire just like a random person,
For
right?
sure.
So I had all these myths that eventually I had to like debunk, or
Okay.
yeah, right. Had
And
to learn it wasn't true.
that's where you and your previous business partner met, right?
Yeah, so yeah, we met at the one in San Mateo, and then when I moved to San Francisco, I tried to come to get him with me, try to get him to come with me, but he was living in the suburbs, I think near Hayward, and if you probably know people from the suburbs, they hate the city.
Yeah.
They're
Oh,
like, oh, what I have to like
yeah.
park
Pay for
and
parking.
this, and I don't have a front yard, and he liked to work on his motorcycles, right? And so he wouldn't come to San Francisco with me
Mm,
until I said, "Hey, listen, I'm starting a recruiting business, right?
mm.
Why don't you like let's team up together?" And then he said, "Okay, but we have to get an office in Oakland, so that way I don't have to drive to the city." I'm like, "Fine, damn it, you're such a diva, right?
Damn
Such a
you.
diva, yeah." And so what happened was then he and I got an office in the Jack London Square,
Okay.
right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
man,
and
Jack,
you know,
right near
there's
the movie theater.
yeah, right, yeah, yeah. I was parked in the movie theater exactly, and it was right across from the barbecue place, Everett and Jones, right?
Yeah.
I think, yeah. So it was right across the street from there, which is cool, and it was a co-working place, and we had a little tiny office
Mhm.
there, but we did all of our work out of there, which was fun, except when the train went by, I did not realize how loud the train
Oh
is.
yeah.
You
Oh
know what
yeah.
I'm talking about?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things that we talked about was when you and your partner started doing work. Obviously, as with any business relationships, things happen, or one person feels this way, one person feels that way. And so I know one of the main reasons I really wanted to have you on the show is because, like you had told me, you guys got a counselor to really help you guys figure that out. And if I remember correctly, she was a marriage counselor, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that was a funny story. So what happened was, Mike and I, we got really lucky in that our first year we were just like we killed it, right?
Yeah.
We had, I think, a bunch of referrals. People came to us. We landed a couple of good accounts. So the money was really good year one. And when money's flowing in, like we're just having fun,
Yeah.
taking long weekends.
Yeah.
It's all good,
Shots
right?
on me.
Yeah, exactly. Right. We're like living our best lives ever, and then the problems start happening when I think it's just like a marriage, right? When stressors were introduced, right? So when
Yeah.
those clients' job orders dried up, and we realized, oh man, we got really complacent on the prospecting. Then we were kind of just in full grind mode. But then it was during then at that point we realized that we would just like butt heads so many times, things that came up that weren't there before. And so, like for example, there's a situation where he and I went out to lunch in Jack London Square, and I think we had a good month, and I think I brought in like a 25K placement check, right? Like
Yeah.
just that week. Somebody celebrates, have lunch, and he ordered like a sandwich like he normally does, and I ordered that, but I threw in a couple sides. But you know what?
Yeah.
Let's have fun. But that whole rest of the day, he was in a weird mood, and then we just talked about it, and he was like, "Yeah, dude, like." I don't feel it was fair that you ordered like way more than me, but we put it on the company card, which is 50-50.
Yeah.
And I was confused. Like, wait, why are you making a big deal out of a small thing? And just stuff like that kept coming up. And then it was in a co-working place that someone was giving a free seminar for business partnerships, right? And it was a woman who used to be a marriage counselor. She was a MFT, and but instead of now helping married people, she helps business partners. She did a
Yeah.
pivot and realized that business partnerships have a lot in common with married couples, right?
Yeah.
And they do. And so and she was having free talks. I'm like, dude, we got to go to this because we're like at each other's throats, right? We're about to kill each other. And so she talked, and what happened was we learned, we learned all these things that were like below the surface that really weren't there. And a big thing, for example, was like values. Like
Yeah.
people have like, and everyone has values. A lot of time, it's just not understood or fully articulated or spoken. So,
Yeah.
for example, going back to the story about me buying extra lunch, right? For me, my value was like, hey, if you like work hard, play hard, right?
Yeah.
And like just have fun. So we're working hard. We brought in a big check. Let's just splurge
Yeah.
on
I'm
lunch, right?
having a steak.
Yeah, I'm having a steak lunch, right? Who cares, right? It's not a big deal. And I think also for me, like being in the Asian culture, food is one of the ways that we express love. Right?
Correct.
People love, too, like in the Filipino culture, it's like, hey, like come eat,
Oh,
sit
dude.
down, eat. Like
Oh.
food is like how we communicate.
I
My
used to
parents never
be
said
60
yeah.
pounds less before. That was where I was.
Yeah, well, like my parents never said like I love you until I was like 20 years old, but they would say like, "Are you hungry?"
Correct.
Right?
Correct.
Same. It's just translation, right?
Yeah.
And so that was for me. Food was like, like have fun. It was a way to kind of be joyous. But for him, uh, fairness was his main value, right? Like, hey,
Mm,
everything should be fair.
yeah.
And so and because we're 50-50 partners, if I spent, more on lunch than him,
Yeah.
even though it's only like $8, it's not fair.
It's
And
not
that
fair.
was like breaching his core, deep-seated values of fairness, because he had, I think, a bunch of siblings. They fought over everything.
Uh,
So, and that wasn't the case for me. But we didn't know this, or let
yeah.
alone like articulate it, right? So then we would just end up getting mad at each other, right? I'd be like, dude, why are you like throwing a big deal? It's $8 extra. Let me give you $8 right now. He's like, no, that's not the point. You should have known, right?
Dudes being dudes.
Yeah, like you're taking advantage of me. I'm like, what are you talking like? And then, but then the counselor really broke it down. It was like, hey, if kind of basically trace where things are coming from. Don't look at where you fell, right? Look at where
Yeah.
you slipped, right?
Yeah.
It's like you slipped
Oh.
here, right? So
Yeah.
it's an analogy, right? It's like
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
step on a banana peel, you're like blaming this situation, but look where it started, and then say, okay, what, like, peel back the layers, right? And so, for example, one of the tools she gave us was to rate things from a scale of 1 to 10
Mhm.
about how strongly you felt about something. So, for example, if at that time I said, look, I want to order a big lunch. He goes, well, hey, I actually don't think we should order a big lunch, or you shouldn't order that. And I feel like a 8 out of 10. I'm like, well, I feel like a 4 out of 10. I don't really care. I just think it'd be fun to
Yeah.
order a big lunch. Then I would yield to him. I'm like, if you feel strongly about it, like, well,
Yeah.
one, can you explain it to me, right? And
Yeah.
two, like, if you feel strongly about it, you care more about it, then like, I'll yield to you. It's not a big deal to me. And then vice versa. Some things would be really important to me, and I'll say this is like a 9 out of 10,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? It's really important, right? But for him, if it's a 3 out of 10, then he'll yield to me. And that was a way for us to like quantify our feelings,
Yeah.
right? And in a logical way,
Mhm.
right? And also prompted us to kind of help articulate that, if that makes sense. And then
Yeah.
what happened was a reporter from NPR actually got word of this. I think someone told her about it, and so they interviewed us
Yeah.
for NPR radio. And so it was a radio interview, and it was a kind of a nationwide interview. So it's like, after it came out, I started getting texts from random people from college, like, "Hey man, I heard you on the radio,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, talk about this, right?" So that was pretty fun.
So what? So how? What was like the timeline as far as because as you know, like everybody's so like rewardish now. Like, how long did you
Yeah.
guys really have to work on it? Like, once, like, from when you first met her to where you kind of felt, or you didn't need her anymore, or were you guys really
Yeah.
worked it out?
It was like a 3 month intensive thing where after she gave a talk, we're like, hey, can we just hire you for be our private coach?
Yeah.
And she would come there. We would get a conference room, right, booked at the co-working place. And um, a big part was she was just mostly acting like a mediator. It's
Correct.
just like a marriage, like a marriage counselor. Hey, like, how does that make you
Yeah.
feel, right? Like, why? And then, but luckily, because we worked together before and we were friends, we had like that foundation. Like, the cool thing
Correct.
is like, yeah, we had that foundation, and we knew no matter what that we trust each other. Like, he would
Yeah.
never screw me over. I would never think of that. He would never think that I would ever do anything
Hmm.
intentionally malicious.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for that, I think we would have like not worked out, because we both had strong feelings about different things. And now I realize, God, like, I see why most business partnerships fail, because
Hmm.
if we had met just off like a networking event and started a business
Correct.
together, we wouldn't have that foundation.
Yeah.
But I think if you don't have the foundation, but you have the tools, right, you can
Correct.
still make it work. But we didn't have the tools, and we learned it. But it took about 3 months of kind of basically therapy, right?
Yeah.
Being able to listen to them. Like, another one was like listen to the message behind the words.
Yeah.
So he might say something like, man, like, you're always so like busy all the time, like on the weekends, or I'll text you, you don't get back to me, like, you just like, you're always so busy, all you care about, you're always so busy with all this other stuff. But the message could be like, hey man, I miss you,
I
bro.
miss
Like,
you, bro. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
we used to
Yeah.
hang out, right? Like, yeah,
Yeah.
at the time I started dating somebody, like, you're always with her all the time. You're always like with her,
Yeah. She's not
like
even
what's
pretty.
yeah, yeah, exactly, right? Like, what happened, right? And he would never say like I miss, because guys don't say, like, men don't
Yeah.
communicate that way. Right? We're not allowed to express like hurt, right? We're allowed to
Correct.
express like anger,
Anger. Yeah.
right? And so, yeah, women, oftentimes it's opposite. They're allowed to be hurt but not angry, right? And so,
Yeah.
and in a healthy situation, you can express all your feelings, right, in a healthy
Correct.
way. But so we learn how to listen to like the message behind the words, how to like, quantify and rate our feelings and stuff like that. But yeah, that was able to help us get along. Then things picked up. We
Yeah.
started doing well again, and yeah, the rest was history. But that was a hard part. That was scary because a couple times we were like, "Oh shit! Like this is it, man. We have to call it quits, right? Like
Yeah.
we can't
It's
resolve
just like
this."
any marriage. You're like, we can't.
Yeah, and we don't know exactly why and how, but like we're at our wits end, right?
Yeah. No, that makes sense. I mean, when me and Roy, when we started this podcast, and that's one of the things I try and stay cognizant of as we move forward. And when we both get out, and like I was telling you, we do create our own recruiting agency.
Yeah.
And that's why I like your story the most, because it's like so very similar of what the
Mhm.
path kind of we're on. And so I know when we started the podcast, that was actually a big conversation him and I had. Is he was like, I feel like you're doing so much, bro. Like, you're doing the video editing, you made the Facebooks, you did this, and I'm like, well, no offense, like, you can't do that stuff. Like, you don't know how to do any of this. And I'm
Yeah,
like, well,
yeah.
like, but how do I bring value to the relationship? He's like, because it's not 50-50, and I don't, and like you said, like, that's a value for him, is he never wants to feel like he's not pulling his weight. And I was like, well, you're gonna be like our paperwork guy, because I hate that shit. So,
Yeah.
like,
Well, I mean, and so here's something else that, like, if I could do it all over again, I would have set up is that like I would have set the business structure differently
yeah,
because my partner and I, we went through like 4 different like iterations of our partnership agreement because we
okay,
realized that like it wasn't set up like to account for everything, right? And that's why like I've even built into one of the modules in my course now, like how to set up partnerships, because people always
oh,
have
that's good,
it, because a lot of times people want to start a business with a buddy, and that's how the
correct.
idea
Yeah.
gets like
People are always like,
incepted,
don't do it.
right?
They're like, it's easy to say, don't do it. Like, well, what if you, yeah.
Yeah, they're like, hey, it's my buddy, or like it's like my brother. I have a client that has like that wants to start a business with his brother, and I'm like, okay, well, here's kind of like what I learned, right? So, for example, in the beginning, we were 50-50, super clean.
Mhm.
It's like, hey, you're buddies, like we're friends, we trust each other, we're both gonna do work, and that was what we thought was simplest, right? But then what happened was a few months, every few months or so, one person would outbuild the other by
Yeah.
like a significant amount, right? So I remember one month I like built double what he was building, and it was kind of luck. He was working on these really hard, like unicorn recs, right? Really, really hard
Yeah.
job orders. I was finding, but I was doing like the easier job orders, but
A
it
lot of
had
bulk.
high volume.
A lot of bulk.
Yeah, so I made up for that, and I ended up building like double, and it was fine. But then what was funny was like I kind of felt weird like cutting a check for like half the amount, even though he didn't touch the work at all, and he felt
Yeah.
weird receiving it,
Taking
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah, and but we busted. Hey, this is the agreement,
Yeah.
and then later on, some months he would outbill me, right? But those feelings would leak, and we just feel like awkward, like all
Hmm.
of a sudden things work wasn't
You're
as
like, should I
fun.
feel like this or should I not feel like
Yeah, it was just
that?
like uncomfortable feelings, right? And so then we, through the counselor, we talked about it and we're like, okay, let's redo our agreement instead of 50-50. Let's add a performance-based component. So that way
Yeah.
it accounts for that. And we were new entrepreneurs. No one ever, I mean, like we went through all these different mistakes. Nobody ever taught me how to run their own
Correct.
recruiting business, right? And so, which is why like I was so passionate about helping other people who were in my shoes now do it, because I went through so much struggle, so much like
Yeah.
headache and heartache, right, as I tried to figure it out. So we included a like it was more basically mostly performance based. Hey, if you did most of the work, you get you get the bulk of the pay, right?
Yeah.
But now that led to the opposite side of the problem, where some months one person would be feasting, right? The other person would be like
Just
famine, right?
barely making
Barely
out.
even getting by. The other person's like, yeah, like I just came back from Hawaii this weekend, and
Yeah.
another person's like,
Oh, you're
yeah, it's
still
nice. Like,
working? It's disgusting.
yeah, I'm eating canned food, right? It's like, and so one person would be really like living high. The other person would like, who didn't make placements that much that month or the past couple months, would be living life like it was paid. It was yeah, living thin, right? So then and then that was creating weird feelings too,
Yeah.
right? So
They're
then we
like,
did
why can't we just get done with these feelings?
yeah, all these feelings keep coming up, right? And like, yeah, men have strong feelings. We just don't, but we just get mad at each other about it, right? And
Yeah.
then, and so then we did a version 3.0 of our agreement that says, hey, listen, let's do this. Essentially, whatever money comes into the house, we set aside a portion that gets divided by both of us because we're both like official owners.
Correct.
So that solves for no matter who brings the placements, we both get to eat.
Yeah,
And like
everybody's still
yeah,
prospering.
we're not like, no one goes broke or no one has to suffer. However, the person that did most of the work in the placement
Still
gets a little bit more. So
Gotcha.
then whoever did more work, they do get more. They feel good about it. The person who didn't get more feels grateful to have a piece of it as like a, you know, as a partner, as part of the house,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
For owning half a house.
That's smart. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I like
but you know, yeah, we didn't figure it out on the first try, right? It took
No,
a few
yeah.
tries. So now I recommend that people. So if you and Roy ever kind of formalize your relationship and working relationship, that's something to consider. Like, okay, all like, and basically you kind of do a exercise of going through possible scenarios that might come up, and says, okay, like kind of battle test it. Does my agreement, does this contract, does this partnership agreement account for someone needs to take a month off work?
Yeah.
Someone brings in 100K more than the other person that month.
Yeah.
Somebody, right, all this stuff, right? Someone wants to, if someone wants to quit and leave, what happens to the clients? Do they get a residual or not? We had to build that into it too, right?
Oh, yeah. God, how long was your partnership agreement, by the way?
It was like 10 pages by the time we were done. Right? It was like at first it was a one pager. Hey, like
If
we
you
get
stub
50-50.
your toe on Lincoln Avenue, you get
exactly, right? In the beginning, it was like one paragraph, like we get 50-50, it's all good. And later on, it was like Amendment C, like 0.2.4, right? Yeah. And we had to have people come help us with that. But even though it was hard, it was more work, it solved the problem, right, overall.
Correct,
So, but of course, had we known this from day one, we would have, not been so distracted with this, made more money, had a better experience overall, right? So,
Exactly. But when does
yeah,
anything ever turn out perfect?
rare, yeah, exactly. So then, that's why, like, yeah, I try to help out my people as best I can when I give advice. It's like, hey, here's what I learned the hard way, so that you don't. I mean, which is what I guess every parent tries to do for their kid, right?
For
Like,
sure.
help them learn their life lessons, but then give them a chance to learn things for themselves, but try to steer them at
Exactly.
least right off the cliff.
Oh, definitely, man. I like to this, and I think that's one of the things I like about. I have really enjoyed about my career as a military recruiter is, these people are joining the same place that I'm a part of. So they're going to, and I've been in now 14 years. So as the people I recruited go from going through all the same trials and tribulations, I built a really good relationship with most of them to the point where like I get asked advice all the time. And I would imagine that's not the normal in the civilian sector. Like, you hire somebody, the person you got hired isn't going to call you like, hey, John, like I'm thinking about going for this promotion. What do you think? It's just not the same kind of scenario. And so I
It's
definitely
less
get,
of a brotherhood. Yeah, less of a brotherhood, more of like,
it's a business transaction.
yeah, it's a business world, which is why like most of the people who I coach now, who want to start their own business, they'll say, "Hey, I have a couple." I'm like, "Who do you have anyone that can help you with this?" And they're like, "Well, I have a couple of, colleagues, old coworkers that I know I could reach out to, but I don't feel comfortable like emailing them every day and expecting a fast response, right? Like I'll catch it with coffee once every few months and then maybe pick their brain, but they realize, okay, I want to take my business seriously. I want more of a dedicated resource, someone that. So if I pay you, then I don't feel bad asking you for help, right?
You're like, now, like it's the relationship.
Well, it's good when you feel like a personal trainer, right? Like you pay them, and then they help you get the results, right? Versus having like a bro that you can pick his brain every now and then, but he's not gonna show up and help you.
Exactly. No, I get it.
Your hand, right? Yeah.
So what made you transition into doing the coaching?
Well, what happened was I think it was a timing thing where we hit about the 5-year mark in our business, and at that point, I felt like a desire to do something a little bit different. He got married, right? So he moved from like the East Bay to San Jose, super wealthy family. He's he's living a good life now, right? Yeah, so he wanted to kind of scale down the business, make it more of a lifestyle business. And I moved back to San Francisco, where my family's from. I got into a relationship that was serious. So then we both kind of, I guess went our separate ways, right? He went down south, I went north, right? And so at the time I said, look, a few of people from Premier ended up starting their own staffing businesses too, and they were asking me for like help, and I would talk about partnerships and give them advice on how to get clients, how to manage these different problems that no one taught me, right?
Yeah.
And as I started doing that, I started really enjoying that part of it. I'm like, well, this is really fun. Like just
Yeah.
basically sharing my life story and everything I wish I knew, right? And so I kind of, you know what? I think I can do this as like a business, as my career. So I made that transition. I sold the business to him, and so now he kind of runs it, but really kind of part time, right?
Yeah.
And he kind of it's more of a lifestyle business, which is what he wanted. He didn't want to do the whole hustle. He's a baby now, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
right, you can't really do so much
No.
when you have a family commitments. And and that's when I started Learn to Recruit, and it's helping out people, and then that grew and word of mouth.
Yeah.
So now I've kind of put together like basically like a whole program that covers like everything I wish I knew, all including it's mostly all the mistakes I made and how to not make them, right?
Mistake
Yeah.
number 37.
Yeah, exactly. And countless mistakes of with clients, with candidates, with taxes. Like no one ever told me I had to set aside money for it, right? Like I've
Yeah.
always had like a paycheck. So
Yeah.
when a tax bill came, I'm like, yeah,
Wait,
here you go. You're like, yo, like it was like a 60,000. I'm like, what? Like I did not know I had to. I thought you took it out of my pay. I thought you took it out already, right?
Look at your BMW, like, you gotta go, girl.
I was like, yeah, man. I'm like, oh god, cancel vacations. Like it was stressful, right? It took me years to have to like resolve that because like no one
Yep.
told me here you have to set aside X amount for taxes and
Yeah.
not spend this and not do
Yeah.
this and
Because you're an independent contractor, right?
yeah, well, yeah,
It's
and then
like,
like it's funny, people expect you to know that stuff. That's why, like, and like our bookkeeper was like, "Wait, like, obviously you knew to like save X amount for taxes, right?" I'm like, "No, like
that's
why
why
did
I
you?
hired you.
Yeah, like, why didn't you tell me this, asshole? Right? Like, what did I pay you for, right?" Um, but like to him, it's like, yeah, of course everyone knows this, but and so it
Not
was
people
like
that have a paycheck because they just take it out for them.
yeah, and I kind of my whole life was living that way, so I never
Yeah.
really quite thought. I mean, and I think in the back of my mind, I did know, but I just didn't
But
really
you're
want to
like,
deal
no.
with it.
Well, you're like, I've hired someone to tell me. Only reason
Yeah.
I know is because my mom is a accountant. So
Okay.
I
Yeah. So
grew up in the accountant
yeah,
world.
you grew up knowing.
I grew
Yeah.
up knowing, like, like you got to keep receipts and you got to keep this, you got to keep a certain amount of money on the side and like all that type of stuff. But yeah, had it not been
Yeah.
for that, people don't know that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like, well, man, whatever. My bookkeeper will let me know if I'm doing anything wrong, or but it's also not his job necessarily, right? And maybe he was a good bookkeeper. He would have been like, hey, like, by the way, quarterly payments, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like, how you doing, John? Like, you didn't even check up on me, man.
Yeah. Needless to say, he's no longer with us.
Yeah, no, there's no like, but I mean, it was devastating. Right? It took me years to pay back all those back taxes that I did not know I had to save.
Exactly.
And yeah, one of the many examples of things that like I didn't know that I didn't know. Right? It's like if you
Yeah.
look at like the pie chart, right? It's like what you know, what you don't know, and like what you don't know that you don't know.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You're like,
And
what? That you don't know what you don't know.
yeah, like you don't know this, but the fact that I didn't know that going in, right? Like I was just unaware. Right? It's like ignorance, and so a lot of people pay what's called like the dumb tax or stupid tax, and so I
Mm,
paid a lot of that throughout my years of being a business owner, and so yeah, that's kind of really what's baked into the program. It's like here, do this, avoid all these things, and you'll
yeah.
make good money, and then you'll have time freedom, all the stuff that people bitch about,
Yeah.
working in the recruiting world, right? Having a boss, being tied to like
Yep.
Slack, right? They can't step out. They have to like. For me, it was like my main motivator to do my own business was like asking for time off. I don't know about you, but like
Yeah.
whenever I ask for PTO, it just feels so dirty. Like requesting PTO, I just feel so guilty. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Hey.
would it be okay if I like
Yeah.
my aunt died? I know I'm not supposed to like. I know like this is a big quarter for us, right? We got our numbers to hit, but like if I could have a day or two off, that'd be great. And I just felt so
Yeah.
yeah, like
I know.
I
We
feel like
get
I
it.
was asking for like allowance for my mom. Maybe that's why, because I wasn't allowed to like. My parents didn't believe in allowance. They're like, no, you should do dishes because we tell you to.
Oh,
Like,
I didn't get a. Oh, same
yeah,
thing. Same thing.
yeah,
I talked to.
Yeah. My parents don't believe in allowance, so like, but if I wanted to buy something, I had to like see like, here. Like, this is. I feel like I'm in a therapy session now. Yeah, I had to ask. I'm like, hey, mom, I really want to buy these shoes. I know, like, I don't have money because you won't give me allowance, so I have to like beg you for stuff, right? And so like 20
All
years
the other
later,
kids have shoes that are
yeah, like
5 years
there's like
old.
Nikes. I'm getting these like like
I have
you get,
Shacks.
yeah, I got these shitty shoes. They're making fun of me, right? These are girl shoes, right? and so as an adult, like asking for time off just felt like I was asking for like $20 from my mom, and so I just never liked it. So then, to me, the biggest perk of being your own boss is to take time off without having to
Oh, I agree.
request PTO, right?
Yeah, like we
Stuff
get
like
30
that.
days, like we get 30 days of time off a year, like allotted to us,
Yeah,
but but it is based off like can you go or can you not, like are you able to. I have been fortunate enough to be able to do a lot of it cuz recruiting, in the military, if you're doing your job.
hmm
I don't know how. I know some people have had a less easy time because their bosses are like, well, you're not even on track to make mission this month, dog. Like, do you really need to take 3 weeks off? You know,
yeah, yeah.
I have always been fortunate enough where I've stayed on track. So, like, if I want to take a week or two off, it doesn't affect the overall number too much. Um, but no, I agree. Like, it always feels really weird, like when it's like, can I
Yeah,
go?
you're waiting for your boss to be in a good mood
Yeah,
first. Or like,
yeah,
it's like mom and dad. Is mom and dad happy? Are they fighting? Are they in a good mood? It should.
He's not
I'll
mad.
ask tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll talk about this later. But then also it comes from an aspect of like you really can't even take a break.
Mhm.
Like I know, like I would take 3 weeks off if my family and I flew to California, and I'd like have my laptop with me, and like I'd be
Yeah,
like, they're like, oh, it's okay, man. Like take your vacation, enjoy it. And I'm like, you guys are so full of shit. I
yeah,
will
yeah.
have my I will have my iPhone. I will have my laptop. I just can't guarantee that I can get to within 5 minutes. But what if you need something done? Just text me, dude. Like it'll get
Yeah, it's very
done.
subjective. It is like in the civilian world, and I know like we talked a bit about that on our first call. Of, like, a lot of people who are listening to this are probably like in the military recruiters, right? And
Yeah,
maybe with the idea of one day transition to the private sector, right?
yeah,
And so I think one of the similarities is that it is kind of very numbers based, where if you're killing it and you're crushing your numbers, you can do whatever you want. Like they'll treat you like a
hmm,
star quarterback. Yeah, whatever, it's all good.
yeah, yeah.
But if you're below your numbers, that's when
You're not doing your
so it's
job.
very, yeah, it's very subjective, right?
Yeah,
And so I think that's one thing. But I think actually people in the military, I'm assuming, would do really well in the private sector because they have strong discipline, right?
yeah.
And that's such a big thing that people struggle with, who are like, people who in the private sector. Like I have a client who I'm just started working with. He's kind of working on building his recruiting website, and he's like weeks on the third week still like not getting around to it. He's like overthinking it. I'm like,
Uh,
dude, website logo stuff doesn't matter. It's like the
it's
eighty
just
twenty rule, right?
doesn't really matter. Yep.
Focus on the 20% that's gonna get you the clients, getting clients. Things are revenue generating activity. But the main thing is, it's like he hasn't yet had the discipline to be like, all right, if I say I'm gonna do this, it's gonna get done. All
Yeah.
right. And I have friends who are in the Marines are like, yeah, like if I say something and I don't do it, there's so much like cognitive dissonance that I just can't. I have
Yeah.
to, right?
Exactly.
Uh and and so because a lot of people who are soft, right? People who kind of grew up soft or haven't yet had a chance to cut their teeth or learn the hard way, they can afford to take their time. They're used to kind of
Yeah.
just yeah,
Just
yeah,
meandering through tasks.
yeah, and you know what it is? It's like, they get and when they don't do something, people, no one gives them a hard time that much, right?
Yeah.
It's like, no one, like, people say, hey, no worries,
Yep.
yeah, it's all good, get you whenever, like, yeah, take a mental health day, like, realize it's not a big deal, right? But
Yeah.
a lot of times, like, and now I grew up that way, where if I say I'm going to do something, like, I just do it,
Yep.
um, and that and that slows a lot of people down when they want to start their own business. So I think people who are trained to
Yeah.
do what they say, they have the willpower. If they're tired, if they don't want to, they do it anyways.
Yep.
I think that's like 80% of it
It
in
is.
life, right?
Oh my god. I was
Not just in business, but just in
always
life.
tired. Always tired. My daughter tried to do that to me the other day. She was like, "I'll clean the dishes in the sink when you're done loading the dishwasher." I was like, "All right, cool." And then by the time I was done, I was like, "All right, Ivy, come over here and do it." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to do it anymore." I was like, "Nah, get your ass up. That's not how life works.
Yeah, no,
Get that
exactly, right.
stool. You told me you would do that, so you're gonna do it." And she's like, and I was like, "Trust me, you'll thank me later when like other people don't do stuff and you do it.
Yeah, and like I think that's the biggest like thing of success in business and everything of just like do what you say what you're gonna do, whether you feel like it or not,
Yeah,
right?
well, it's
And
like it's a personal. I mean, I know some people don't like that phrase, but it is a personal brand thing every single day.
mhm.
What is the next person going to say about you? Are they going to say that, oh, he's a really nice guy, but I can't rely on him at all?
Yeah,
Or is it
right.
the other way around? You know?
Yeah, and a big thing that spills over into like recruiting, like when you are in the private sector and you're getting a new client, like how quickly you respond to that client or candidate,
Yeah,
especially in the beginning, will determine how quickly they reply to you, right?
correct.
So if someone's like, "Hey," if a good candidate's like, "Hey, can you get back to me?" and then you get back to them like the next day, like to them the next day is forever if they're thinking about making a job switch,
Hmm.
right? But if you get back to them within minutes or within the same hour, then that builds that like, oh, this guy gets back to me, this person
For sure.
is responsive, so I'll be responsive to them. It's like the rule of like reciprocity, right? People
Yeah,
treat you the way that you treat them. And so if you start off every relationship with like, all right, I do this,
yeah.
I carry through with my word, and I just work hard, then that solves most problems, right?
No, yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
I think people forget that. I'm like, don't get it twisted, man. I mean, your actions people notice, just like we talked about.
Yeah.
Just like what we talked
Yeah.
about at the beginning is people notice the verbiage that you use and things like that. And I think a lot of people don't think that they don't because they may not pay attention. But I'm like, trust me, most people pay attention. I pay attention. If I text somebody, and I think I was talking to a friend of mine about the same thing, is
Yeah.
I had text somebody and then they never texted me back. They just
Mhm.
ignored me. So I emailed them and then I CC'd their supervisor.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a shitty thing. It was just like, hey, I'd like to talk to you about something. Can you let's create a time? Well, I knew that if I CC'd her supervisor, she would be like, damn it, like I'm on the hook now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
my friend was like, damn, bro, like you did that. And I was like, my time is valuable. If I take the time, it should need reciprocation. Like I didn't
Yep.
just, even if you don't want to do it, then just say, hey, I'm good. I don't really want to talk. And that's
Yeah.
okay. But trust me, like my time is valued just like I should value your time. So if I take the 5 minutes to message you, you better message me
Yeah. It's funny.
back.
So, I actually teach a technique that for that with clients where, let's say I reach out to a hiring manager and they say, oh, I'm not the right person. Like, Jeff is
Yeah.
I'm Bob. Jeff is the one who's hiring for that role, right?
Hmm.
And so when I reach out to Jeff, I'll say, "Hey, I just had a nice conversation with Bob,
Yeah.
who asked me to reach out to you regarding this candidate who he thought might be a good fit for your company,
Yeah.
right? I'll plan on giving you a call back." And then even though Bob said it was a one-line response from Bob, I'm saying we had a nice conversation.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he's
Yeah.
kind of I'm trying to make it apply like we're friends, right?
Exactly. Yeah. That he
Okay,
needs to call you back because there's
yeah, he's
some
like, if I
type of
don't, then Bob might be like, "Hey, what happened? That's my best friend. That like,
he was at my house last night. He told me
he's
to
the best
call
man at my
you.
wedding. He
He
saved
was
my
holding
life."
the ring. He was holding the rings.
Yeah, yeah,
That's funny you
exactly.
said that because I think
Yeah.
I read that somewhere else. They were talking about when you email a chain of like the higher leadership at an organization because then everybody who's reading it, because they don't all talk, as we all know, like in any organization, not everybody at the top is talking at every minute. So one of them is going to assume that one of the other ones wants them to reply or so forth. And so eventually like you'll get a response probably from at least one person just because of like the herd
Yeah.
mentality of responding.
It is, and like that's why like top down like sales recruiting works so well because and it's weird because in the beginning I would be too afraid to like email or send a LinkedIn message to like a C level like a CTO, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, that person's like basically a CEO or a CEO of a medium sized company. So I'll be, let me just start with like maybe a manager or something
Yeah.
like that. And then it was taking forever to get anything done. But the moment I did, I said, you know what, I'm just gonna reach out to a
Yeah.
VP or president level, C level person. They were sometimes more responsive, and they'd be like, oh yeah, talk to like Richard, right? And then I'll say, hey, Richard, the CTO said to reach out
Yeah.
to you, and then things happen really quick. But it took me a long time to muster the courage
For
to
sure.
do that, right? So I wish someone had given me the permission to like, just go talk,
Dude,
shoot high and work your way down
exactly.
versus start at your comfort level and work your way up slowly, right?
No,
So
for
I think a
sure.
big part of my job now is to, it sounds kind of weird, but to give people like
Confidence.
unconscious permission,
Yeah,
give permission, like, you know what, do it, go for it. It's all good.
exactly.
What's the worst that can happen, right? It's like encouraging a single friend to like say hi to someone at a
Yeah,
bar.
yeah.
They like, just say hi. What's the worst that can happen, right?
You're
Like,
gonna say
yeah,
no. Guess what?
you
Well,
say
I'll
no,
buy
right?
you a beer. I'll buy you a beer.
Yeah, exactly, right. But like they need that like push, right? That little nudge. I
Yeah.
mean, that's how I met my wife. I met her at the bar, right? And
Yep.
with her, she was with her friends visiting from Texas, and we met. But had I not had the courage, she'd be like, you know what? What's the worst going to happen? We
Yep.
would never have met and gotten married. But and same thing in business. I think people just need that little push. But yeah, go ahead. It's LinkedIn, right? They'll send you a response or ignore your response.
Yeah.
Worst case scenario. Best case, you're talking to someone that is in charge of all the hiring, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and that's me and Chris I was telling you about. We love that. We both love the movie Wolf of Wall Street, where he's like,
Yeah.
if you're about to lose your house, pick up the phone. Like,
Yeah.
and that's I try and tell people that same stuff. I'm like, man, like you got to be hungry, bro. Like don't be thirsty, just be hungry.
Yeah, well, it's funny. Yeah, like it does take like a burning desire, and well, that's like we talked about clients, but on the candidate side, like a big thing that like I teach people how to screen um, for candidates, that you have to find like a burning desire for them to make a move out of their job.
Correct.
And because
Like
what's
a
really
decision
what people
maker.
fall into is, yeah, they meet someone that's like perfect resume, super nice, they're responsive, but somehow in the back of their brain, like they know like something's not right, like it doesn't feel right, like their spidey senses are tingling.
Yeah.
Right. So I have a module called like the recruiter spidey sense, where I'm like, hey, if you feel that spider sense, like something's not right or something's a little bit off, like you have to explore that. You have to kind of peel back the layers and
Yeah.
say, hey, listen, like you have a great resume. I know the client's gonna love you. Something tells me that either you're not motivated, or this is not like something's holding you back, right? Like what is it, right? And they might be
Yeah.
like, oh, like like, I'll interview, but I'm really not looking that much. And so what
Mm,
happens is they end up putting that person in play. They get an offer at the last second, they lose the offer.
yeah.
Now the client's upset,
Mhm.
like they're disappointed. Like you just lost a big check, but you knew in the beginning that that person wasn't that enthusiastic. But instead of saying, hey, let's pause for a second, my gut feeling says that like, you know, something about me says that you're not that excited about it. And the last thing I want to do is put you in a position to get an offer from a company and then you decide it's not a good fit, because then it'll be hard to revisit
Exactly.
that company later. Of course, it'll make me look bad, and
Yeah.
I don't want you
Like
to
an
lose.
inverted order effect.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want you to lose out on this as well. So, why don't we just kind of back up a bit and tell me what will, right? And you have to find like a burning desire for them to want to make a move.
Yeah.
And so if they want 10% more money, like that's not a good reason, because
Yeah.
then they might quit your client's job and go work for another company that pays them a little bit more money.
Exactly.
But if they say like my commute is killing me, or like I'm being unutilized at work, or
Yeah.
all my other peers are advancing with technologies, I'm still stuck using like C++. Like I know I'm gonna be pigeonholed out of a career if I stay here any longer. Like that's a good reason,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that person will accept a good job offer. But it's little stuff like that. It's really nuanced, right?
True. Okay.
Yeah,
So, as we approach the end,
yeah,
so usually two questions. So,
sure.
this is we ask everybody. So, first question is, what's kind of like, you know, and you probably get it all the time. What's like a beginner based advice that you give someone who's like first starting out that you wish you would have known?
Yeah, good question. I think the biggest advice I give most often is to basically like debunk all the myths that people have about starting their own business, especially in recruiting, right?
Yeah.
And so, for example, there often it's like people say same things. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough
Mhm.
time. I don't have the enough experience, right? Like,
Yeah.
why would a company hire me?
Yeah.
Um, and or I can't leave because I have a non-compete clause, or my boss probably won't let me leave. I'll get in
Mhm.
trouble if I start my own business, and all right, right, because I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
And so these are things that came up for me, right? And later on, I had to be able to look, the non-compete, it's not a big deal. It's more, especially in California, you can't even enforce it, right?
Yeah.
It's more of a deterrent. And especially if you get clients in a different sector, different industry, different candidate pool, it's all good, right? Like they have really no basis to
Yeah.
get upset with you, the experience, right? As long as you know how to do a good job recruiting, if you learn sales and learn business, you can open up shop and be successful. And then like money, right? You just need a cell phone, a laptop, and
Yeah.
$80 a month for
Yeah.
LinkedIn
Yeah.
Navigator,
Yeah.
right? And so an hour a day is enough time to get started, and you can even
Yeah.
get started while you have your day job and not risk it. So but these fears they feel very real to
Right.
people, and I understand that. So
Yeah.
a big part of what I do is having to kind of just let people know, hey, those fears are there, but it's not real. And here's how you can still
Exactly.
pursue your dreams. Like, don't let those fears hold you back from your dream life or whatever it is you want, right?
Yeah. No, for sure.
So that would be that.
Okay. And then the second one is, what in your mind, what if someone said the scared money don't make money, what does that like mean to you?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind is like scarcity, like
Yeah.
having that mindset, right? Like,
Yeah.
like the biggest thing I hear people complain about, and I think the reason why most people start their own recruiting business is because they hate having to work with clients they don't like, clients that are super picky, or they're like discount clients. Like, they're really cheap. They
Oh,
won't make it. They won't hire
discount
someone.
client.
Yeah, yeah. People that pay below market salaries and expect these amazing results. Um, but at the same time, they can't walk away from them. They can't say, you know what, hey, this is not a good fit. We're gonna,
Yeah.
we probably shouldn't work together anymore because these are not realistic expectations. And it's because it's scared money. They're afraid. Okay, if I say no to this C client, I'm not, I might not be able to find the A client, right?
Yeah.
And so the way you solve for that, and the big like belief that one of my big principles in my program is that every single day you should be prospecting for new business, even if you have tons of job orders and you want to just do 100% recruiting. You still have to prospect because that's how you keep your funnel full,
Yeah.
and it gives you not scared, the not scarcity vibe, where because when you're really busy, you have tons of clients, you have tons of job orders, tons of business happening, and a potential client says, yeah, but can you give me like a 50% discount? You could say like, you know what,
Nah.
I can't, and here's why, but be polite about it, right? But you could turn down
Yeah.
clients but you can only do that if you come from a place of abundance, like real abundance. And like you said, people pick up on things. You can't fake abundance. They know that, okay, like you don't have, we say, oh,
Yeah.
like my schedule's really busy, but maybe next week I can fit you in. They know you got nothing going on, right?
Yeah.
Everything is sub-communicator, right? But when you truly have lots of business, you can say, you know what, I can appreciate why you're asking for a discount, and unfortunately, I have other clients at full fees, so I
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to. Even though I want to work with you, I wouldn't be able to justify working on your job until I fulfill all my other clients' positions, which means that I won't be able to work with you as quickly as I want to, and that's
Yeah.
not a good relationship. It's probably best for us not to even
Yeah.
have that business, right? And then they understand, they respect that, but you have to create that
What's that
abundance
value?
mindset. Yeah, you have to create that abundance by having abundance, by
Mm.
putting the work, and no matter what, prospecting, doing the things every day that we talked about of filling your pipeline, and then you can turn away
Yeah.
that business. Yeah.
No, you're right. I did that when I started recruiting. I used to have a sign on my door that says appointment only.
I love it.
People were like,
Yeah.
but that's not a normal thing. You hear about the classic military recruiting office. It's like, oh, I'm going to walk in and join the military today.
Yeah.
I stopped that. And
Yeah.
like you said, it created this standard in the
Yeah.
area where I was like, you will be pre-qualified, then you can come, then you are allowed to come in for an appointment. And like you said, people were just like, oh shit, like they don't just let people just walk in. I'm like, nope, because that's not how we operate here. I don't need you here. Like, so
Yeah, but
it,
at the same, but they see you every time they walk by, and you're like on your phone. Like
it,
there's no one ever comes in. They're like,
it,
man.
exactly. Well, I can't. Here's the trick. I kept the door locked.
Oh, there you go. See, that's good. That's
I kept
good.
the door locked and I kept the things down, and they started putting like buzzers on all the recruiting doors. So like it was like like you couldn't get in unless you pressed this button, no matter what. It was
Oh,
an electronic lock. So
yeah,
yeah, like you're saying, like no one's walking by and there's nobody in my office. They can't see in my office. I have like this cool graphic on my window that they can't look
nice.
in, and then I have my shade down on my door. So it created this allure, like, oh man, this dude's always busy.
Yeah, this is like a private. This is like a special room. Man. If I
Like,
get into this
yeah,
room,
I want to get in
like,
this room. I want
yeah,
this.
right. I want to be behind. I want this meeting, right? Yeah, my life's gonna change for
Exactly.
sure.
No, yeah, and so no, I 100% agree with you, and I love that you said that because I try and tell a lot of recruiters that I'm like, don't be afraid to create value, like
Yeah,
and change the way that people perceive the way that you operate.
yeah, and unfortunately, there's no shortcuts to that, right? Like I
There
tell people,
isn't.
like I can show you all the strategies, all the things that I've learned, all the tools that I have for creating, lots of money in recruiting as your own boss, but I can make you work.
Exactly. Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, so that's why even though I guarantee results in my program, it's contingent on them completing doing all the action
Yeah,
items. Like
you're like, I can't do
right,
it for you.
yeah, I was like, yeah, exactly right.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's why I think people who have success in the military and have that background are leaps and bounds ahead of most people who have the maybe more skills, more
Yeah.
technical knowledge, more corporate experience, but they don't have like the inherent drive or discipline or resourcefulness, right? To
Yeah.
dig deep and do the work that's hard, even though they're afraid and they don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Because if you're afraid of something and you're not in the mood to do something, like most people,
Yeah.
it'll never happen. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. And
So
so
that's why I admire like my friends who are in the Marines have so much discipline. They make me feel like a couch potato, right? Even
yeah.
though I work hard, I'm like,
Yeah.
dude. So I respect those guys a lot. They're
So
tough, man.
So where can people find you in your program? So like by all means, this is like your self promotion. Like like we try and tell everyone I know like just because you're on our show, we want you to self promote. That's why we asked you to be on the show. So by all means, where can people find you? How long is your program?
Yeah, sure, man. I appreciate that. Well, they can just find me. They can look me up on LinkedIn or go to my website, which is
Okay.
learntorecruit.com. Yeah, and there I have like a 20-minute little overview video that talks about like the major obstacles that stops recruiters from going off on their own and how to overcome that. So they can check out the video, and I think at the end of that 20 minutes, they'll know whether or not it might be a good fit or if my style fits, their style, if there's an alignment, and if so, there's an option to book a call with me, and I'm happy to chat with people who have that aspiration, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm always happy to help people who are looking to get out on their own because I've been there and
Yeah.
we talked about just some of the, stories of me struggle busing. And
Yeah.
so if I can help people get to where they want to go, get to their dream life a little faster, easier, safer, then
Yeah.
that's why I do this. Yeah.
For sure. All right. Well, that concludes our episode. We went long, man. I feel like we
Do
could
we?
talk. We could talk all day.
Oh, I haven't even. I'm not even looking at the clock. Yeah. How long did we go for? Was
uh,
that an hour?
it was over an hour.
Oh, damn.
So
Cool.
I was trying. I don't want to take. Didn't want. I was like, God, I don't want to take too much of his time. But
No, 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 no.
um,
That was fun, man. Thanks.
I appreciate being your first show. Hope
Yeah,
you had
man.
a
I
good time.
appreciate you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then yeah, you guys can find him like at his website, like I said, and I'll put it in our comments on YouTube. And then that's a wrap. So we'll see you guys later.
All right.
Bye.
Indulge and to learn about ourselves. Perhaps